Here you go, Patrick. Your old head. Are you sure you want to give up being smart and sophisticated to be my friend again?
Knowledge can never replace friendship. I prefer to be an idiot.
Not just an idiot, Patrick. You're also my pal.
I'm sure everyone knows that the first 3 seasons of SpongeBob SquarePants are considered by most people to be the greatest of the entire series. And hey, I'm not here to debate that. It's hard to think differently considering the massive downfall the show had with its mid-seasons. But even after the show had luckily redeemed itself with its post-sequel seasons, what came after the first movies mostly held in a bad spotlight. But if there was one season that I would consider to be on par with the pre-movie era, then it's definitely season 4. And season 11 too, but we're not talking about that one today. The 4th season of SpongeBob is underrated as all heck and deserves more credits than any other part of the show in my opinion. There may be some stinkers here and there, but other than that, so many great episodes spawn from here. From great episodes like Fear of a Krabby Patty, Skill Crane, Mrs. Popular Fired, or Setting Out, to some of my all-time favorites like Karate Island, Dungeons and Dragons, or Have You Seen the Snail? But there's one episode from season 4 that in my opinion deserves to be talked about way more, due to its relatable messages, deep cutting moments, and general greatness. I am talking about Patrick Smartpants. If you didn't already know. Actually, I wouldn't even call this episode to be unpopular, but rather underestimated. May I say? I would call it an underrated masterpiece. If you didn't already know! The episode starts with SpongeBob and Patrick performing their usual shenanigans in Jellyfish Fields. Then, Patrick runs towards a forlorn cliff, falls down the abyss, dies, and the episode is over. He loses his head in the process, but SpongeBob finds it and puts it back on. And apparently SpongeBob caught Stephen Hawking's brainstem because out of the blue, Patrick starts talking in a high-educated and intellectual manner, and shares never-before-seen interests in nature, science, and even music. Also, I need to praise Bill Fagabaki's voice work here. His voice is so deep that it almost sounds like he's voicing a complete different character, but still has a signature tone to feel like Patrick.
May I suggest that on the 7th bar of the Adagio Andante that you add a little fortissimo on the arpeggiated B-flat scale?
Though, due to his newfound intelligence, Patrick does not gain enjoyment from hanging out with SpongeBob or participating in the tomfoolery anymore. He actually wants to spend more time with less immature people like Squidward or Sandy. Which is why Patrick ultimately ends his and SpongeBob's friendship. I really like how Patrick stays completely reasonable and calm during this conversation. Instead of just leaving SpongeBob behind like trash, which is how the latest seasons would have probably done it, Patrick thanks him for the fun times they had, but that they just drifted apart from each other.
I know we've had fun in the past, but we're just not compatible anymore. It's time we went our separate ways. Such is life.
It's hard to accept, but SpongeBob has to. Later we see SpongeBob in his home, obviously devastated by Patrick ending their friendship, asking how he should compete with such geniuses around him. At the same time, we see Patrick also alone at his home, visibly rumbling because he isn't able to share his knowledge with any other people. Since it was already shown that Patrick cannot stand Squidward's awful clarinet play, and Sandy dislikes the new Patrick for him playing down her own intellect, he feels lonely and starts remembering the time he had with SpongeBob. The episode cuts back and... this scene, man.
At least Patrick's my friend in my memories.
Oh, the glory days. Why have we grown apart?
This is the best moment of the episode because it is brought into a direction we do not expect. We only see SpongeBob opening his book of memories. We only see him tearing up. So we obviously expect the tear dropping on the page to come from SpongeBob. But then the camera zooms out and it's revealed that it's actually Patrick who shed the tear and that he misses SpongeBob as much as SpongeBob misses him. I need a minute. It subverts our expectations and shows us that it's Patrick who would try to save the friendship and not SpongeBob. Talking about him, I love the way he acts in this episode. Instead of trying to force Patrick back into a friendship he can't uphold anyway, and ending the conflict in a predictable and unsatisfying way, He just accepts Patrick's wishes of splitting up and somehow tries to cope with it. He does cry and suffer, but it's never too exaggerated. He never balls his eyes out for 3 minutes straight and overflows his neighborhood, which is also something the mid-seasons love to do. It really makes SpongeBob come off as very relatable and sympathetic, and also a good friend. Anyways, after Patrick realizes that he won't be able to explain his sudden personality change by using science, or by growing hair, he only has one option left.
Aw, man. Patrick, you're kidnapping me?
Yes, I am.
I love this plot point so much, you guys have no idea. Together, they both try to have fun again. To no avail. But after SpongeBob remembers Patrick that he changed after he fell down the cliff, Patrick once again jumps down the abyss and realizes that the head SpongeBob previously thought to be Patrick's head is actually just brain coral, which I didn't know is an actual synonym for spheroid-shaped corals with a grooved surface. This is such a clever joke I only realized while scripting this, my god. Eventually, both find Patrick's real head. Patrick makes sure one final time that he's okay with losing his intelligence in favor of his friend. He regains his old self, and he and SpongeBob run towards the sunset, holding their jellyfishing nets, laughing joyfully. Patrick's Smartpants is way deeper than I initially thought as a kid, because it confronts you with the theme of growing apart. I can recall many times where I lost good friends of mine because we lost contact or simply grew apart. Eventually we developed different interests, had detached friend groups, or just didn't enjoy each other's company anymore. And even if it's unfortunate, this is just how life is sometimes. This episode portrays that in a great way, also including how it feels to realize that. Plus, it values friendship as something you can never replace with anything, like Patrick said before.
Surrounded by knowledge, and no one to share it with. No one I can call friend.
What does it bring you to have all knowledge of the world in your brain, if you have no one you can talk about it with? It's no use if there's nobody who can listen to you, or you can listen to. This episode definitely ranks up as one of my favorite episodes of the entire show, which is a high praise considering how many great episodes SpongeBob had. It may not even be my favorite season 4 episode, but it's definitely the one I respect the most. And yeah, it may not be the funniest or most thrilling episode of the show, but it doesn't need to. Because sometimes, visual wisdom of life is all we need to really make us feel.